I get a clicker.
Yeah, the clicker works.
Sweet.
Ladies and gentlemen, my best friend, as of today.
Yes. We end up having a lot in common. Thank you. Thanks, All right. How are we doing?
Good.
That was super weak. I'm going to try it one more time. How are we doing?
Good.
How are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, how are we doing? All right, if you can't tell already, I have like a little bit of energy. Okay, but I like that because energy allows us to be, if we can focus that energy, we can put it somewhere, and that's where I wanted to put it. I want to put it somewhere. And today, I want to put it in learning what I'm about to teach you guys today. So I'm going to say it one more time. How are we doing?
Awesome.
Awesome. And also, one of the things I want to kind of participate with you guys in, I want engagement from you. I'm a type of guy that I love the engagement. I love conversation. I love being able to interact with people. So like, this is actually a real thing for me, is I love being able to have that human interaction. If I'm just talking to myself or whatever and talking to a wall, like I get really bored really quickly. But if I'm able to interact with you guys, that pumps me up. So, and if I can pump myself up, I can be able to give more to you guys. Does that sound about right? Yeah. Is that cool? Can we do that today? Yeah. Awesome. So we can do some interaction today? Yeah. Get some! All right. Sweet. Okay, so today I'm talking about Airbnb secrets, how to make from your first home purchase $6,000 of passive income in a month, every month on average, with little or no money down. Who would like to learn about that?
Oh, yeah.
I would like to learn about that. I would say that's pretty cool. All right, okay, so well, never mind. I pressed the big button right there, huh? It works. That's cool. Okay, so the three things we will be covering. Secret number one, how to get to that point of us actually making $6,000 a month from our first single home purchase is one, where and how to find the best performing vacation rentals that will keep money in your bank account. Secret number two is we're actually looking at the tools and the software and the data that allow us to be able to find those properties. Secret number three is how to do that with little or no money down, and why that's so important, because especially if you want to scale more, if you want to build more, you're going to need to learn to do that with little or no money down, correct? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So before I go into this, I'm gonna be real with y'all. I'm not a really good salesman, okay? But I'm going to sell you something at the end of this presentation, okay? So I also want to let that cow out of the bag right now, okay? And so I hate being sold stuff unless you really convince me, and I'm like, all right, cool. It makes sense. But I want to also be very clear that this is what I'm selling is a group and a lifetime membership for people who are serious about wanting to get into vacation rental. So if you see this as an asset that you can be able to put on your toolbox, then yes, I want you in. If you're like, I don't know, or if you're not too sure, or if I'm just getting into it, then I'm like, dude, just stay back, save your money, go through all the mistakes that I went through, do your thing, all right? But I want people, if you think this could be an asset that could really help you out within your journey to help you focus on more of your why, which we're gonna get into in just a second, then great, I want you in. But just want to make that very clear off the bat, okay? Is that cool? Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so why? That's a good question. So, okay, I believe your why is the strongest force that will allow you to push towards action. And if I teach you all this stuff about vacation rental, investing, how to invest in vacation rentals, it's really useless if you don't take action, correct? Yeah. Yeah, it's useless. We can know all the stuff in the world, but if you don't take action on it, it means nothing. You literally have to take, I'm pretty sure that's scriptural too. You literally have to take action, be a doer, not just a hearer, right? Be a doer. You have to take action in order for it to be you, to be a part of your character. So I want to do a little exercise before we kind of continue with the presentation. Can I do a little exercise with you guys?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Okay, so little exercise. I want to kind of, and sometimes when I talk to some other people about this before, they're like, well, I don't know what it really I don't really know my why, Michael. So I want to get to an opportunity where we can really discuss and find out what your why is. So if you can all do this with me, close your eyes. If your eyes aren't closed, close them. Take a deep breath. Now put a big smile on your face. Now, what makes you smile bigger? What causes you to wake up in the morning? What you get excited about? What do you strive hard for? What is something worth sacrificing everything for that brings you so much joy? What does success look like? Why are you here? Not just the tool of utilizing real estate, but what do you utilize real estate for? What are you trying to accomplish? What does success look like? Just picture that, like wherever that is, or wherever location. What does it sound like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? All right, open your eyes. That felt kind of good?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you have any volunteers of who can share something that they pictured, or maybe just kind of redefine what their why was? Anybody? I'm going to start picking on y'all if you don't raise your hand. In the back, Michael.
My son driving my boat is my moment. I want to get back there more.
Why is that your moment?
It's the happiest I've ever been.
Yeah. That quality time with your boy, being able to do things together that you love. Yeah. Who can agree with that? That's pretty solid. What else?
Take time.
Time.
Time to invest in people and family and friends.
That's right, man. That's mine. That's mine. What else?
Freedom.
Freedom.
Do anything I want, whatever I want.
Amen.
Whatever I want.
Amen. Literally telling my tale right now. What else?
I was going to do a mix of both. Freedom of time.
That's what I was going to say that. Oh yeah, freedom of time, right? I'll be willing to do anything, almost anything, to be able to get my time. Freedom of time. What else?
We're kind of quasi-retired and I have too much time. And what I find brings a smile to my face is giving. The blanket that used to be on our couch that I just bought yesterday, I sent it to Christina because she's sick. Anyway, so I love giving and I want the freedom
Yes.
to be able to help our young daughter get
Yes.
to the first place. And people that I care about that are struggling with affordable housing.
Yes.
That's what gets me excited.
Come on! Who gets excited about that? I get excited. Let's go! Come on! I get excited about that. Yeah! To be able to be in a position where you're able to, from the overflow, give, that's a great position to be in. That is an amazing position to be in. There's nothing like to be able to see from your efforts being able to pour into someone else and then they benefit from that. There's almost no greater reward. Go.
You talked about scriptural, and that's scriptural right there. Let every man work so they have stuff to give.
Come on. Yep. Come on. That's right. You can tell already, I'm a little bit of a religious guy.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. You'll hear me say that word a little bit. But anywho, okay. So there's two parts, right? There's two motivating things that motivate people to action. One is pleasure, motivating us to where we want to go, right? So whatever you imagined, whatever success looked like, that is a motivator to get there. But there's also an even greater motivator, which is just the reality of things. But it's the motivator of avoiding pain. So I don't want to get into that same exercise and do that, because that can be kind of like just a depressing thing. But I want you to at least acknowledge, what are you running away from? What don't you want to be like? Okay? What don't you want to become? What kind of character you don't want to be like or look like? What are you running away from? Whether it's something from your childhood, something from your past, from that 9 to 5 of not being able to reclaim your time back. I don't want to get into this position of where we're imagining it, because it can get pretty nasty, to be honest, and I've done that before, but I want you to acknowledge the reality that it is there. And for me, when I started chasing my why, or what brings me the most joy in this world, that's when I really started realizing what I'm running away from. And so for me, my why is my wife. My daughter, it's God, being able to travel, freedom of time, being able to serve, give to missionaries, go do missionary work ourselves. That's my why. That's what fills me up, being able to give back. But to be honest, the things that bring me tears in my eyes is this woman right here, that woman right there, and this little lady right here. There was a time in my life where it used to be firefighting. As a childhood, or in my childhood, all I ever wanted to do was be a fireman. I wanted to help people, I wanted to be a hero, but there was a lot of pride that went with that. I want to be the big bad guy, the big bad fireman. I want to walk around and be like, yeah, I got you. I got you, unfortunate folks. I can pick you up and, I'm a big, strong man. I'm a man, right? That was my why. Then I met my wife. She humbled me. She still does. But then I realized I'd rather spend time investing in my wife and my daughter rather than spend 15 to 20 days every single month with the guys at the firehouse. And that was one of the best times of my life. Don't get me wrong, I loved firefighting. I no longer serve with fire service. I did it for 5 years with the city of San Diego. But when I met my wife, I met her at church, and I realized something from my childhood. And growing up, I was raised by a single mother. She raised 5 of us. And she hustled to be able to just put food on the table. My father wasn't around, a very likely story. It's a very apparent thing within our culture, unfortunately. But as I grew old, at first, that's all I knew. And then my father died when I was in high school. But when I grew older, I actually started resenting him more because I realized the lack of confidence that it instilled in my sisters. I realized the lack of confidence and the ability for my mom to be able to be at home and at least just have time to invest in her kids. But she was so busy working, and God bless her, man. She did an amazing job still, but she was so busy working and providing and going to the point where I feel I never had. I still have a good relationship, with my mother, but it wasn't as it could be if there was matched with a father's and a husband's love. And knowing that didn't come alive to me until I had my own family. And at that point in time, I was like, no, I am not going to sacrifice my time to be in a position where I am not going to be able to invest in my wife and let her know that I'm a legit husband. And I'm not going to sacrifice my time to let my daughter know that I will be a very present father. I'm going to invest in her, and I'm going to tell her how beautiful she is, and I'm going to tell her how much she means to me, and she's going to know her worth by her father. Now, if you can tell, that's a very deep meaning thing for me. And I say this because this is my why that caused me to leave this pride of being a fireman. This pride of I want to be a macho guy. That caused me to leave that thing. And that was all I ever wanted since I was, elementary school. Everyone knew me as the fireman kid. That's what they knew me as, because that's all they knew of me. And when I quit, they're all like, what? But they didn't really know what was going on inside because of what I grew up with. So, with that being said, when I got to a point, because I was working 15 to 20 days out of the month, it was quite a lot. I was never home. And my colleague gave me this book. It's a little purple book. Can anyone guess what that is? You know it. So that's a great book. It told me what to do. It didn't tell me how to do anything. It gave me the vision. I was pumped. I was like, let's go, Super Saiyan, right? I was so stoked. But it didn't tell me at all how to do it. So that brought me through a series of events of going through real estate ventures, wholesaling. Some I was successful with, some I wasn't. Assisted living, ended up buying a business, and then not the real estate. I ended up, we actually made that pretty successful, but we had a bad partner, and then that just completely fell apart. And so I went through these series of failures and successes and failures and successes and more failures. But it brought me to just good old-fashioned owning real estate. So we bought our first house, and then we're like, hey, let's at least house hack this. And we were deciding whether or not, okay, should we do a long-term or should we do a short-term rental? And so we got this bonus room. It was a new build. We ended up building a wall with a door in it. I ended up going upstairs and built a little kitchenette and its own little entrance. And we ended up doing an Airbnb instead because we thought we can get more money for it. And so when we did this was our first experience of that. When we did it, we started renting it out, and the people actually who first stayed in it were supposed to be here tonight, but they're my good friends who invited me to this little meetup. I think they're sick though. We ended up making $3,000 that first month. You could make an extra $3,000 and be all right with it. Yeah, I'd be all right with it too. Our mortgage was $1,800. I was pretty stoked. I was like, we're getting paid to live here right now. How crazy is this? So that was our first experience, and after all of our series of failures and successes, well, we had enough success to where we can go take a vacation and enjoy each other's anniversary that we missed like 6 months later. So we went to Florida, my first time in Florida this year, and we went to the Keys. It was very nice time, and I asked the question, man, wouldn't it be cool if we could just invest where we want to go vacation? Who agrees with that? I would love that, right? But it also asked the question, once we started looking into that, we're like, oh, but not every place gives a good return. Which brings me to our first secret. So that is where and how to find the best performing vacation rentals that will keep your bank account full. So water, what does water have to do with this? No, I don't know. It really has nothing to do with it. But the principle of these waters have a lot to do with it. Does anyone have a favorite water up here? I'm just curious. Raise your hand. Just do it. It's fine. There you go. What's your favorite water?
Dasani.
Really? I mean, all right, bro. That's fine. That's cool. It was a surprise. It was a surprise. What else? Anyone else out there? All right, smart water. I can get behind smart water. All right, cool. Yeah, Aquafina. Yeah, whatever. Dasani though? Really? All right, that's cool. That's good. Yeah. All right. I was like, at least expecting like Boss or maybe like Smart Water or Core. I don't know. I thought you're all bougie, but no, you guys are like hardworking people, like blue collar shirt people. I love it. Cool. All right. Well, let's get back to the presentation. So, would you at least agree? Some of these sell for more in price amount, but some of these sell more units, right? Like Dasani, they sell more units, but some of these sell for more money, right? Would you agree? Yes. Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question. If you were to start a water business, what would you do in order to do both? To sell more units and to sell it for a higher price?
Find that balance.
Find that balance, okay.
Make it look good.
Make it look good. Do some good marketing, yeah. Branding? Branding is a great idea. Yes. Make it like very like, oh, this is sexy. Yeah, what else? Come on, y'all.
Use data to target your market.
Use data. I like that one. Use data to target your market. Cool, yeah. You know what I would do? I look for the thirsty crowd. Who would look for the thirsty crowd? I look for the thirsty crowd. That's pretty easy, right? Now, what does that look like? Athletes, that's a good one. Y'all ever been to Disneyland? Do you know what the average person walks in Disneyland? They walk 20,000 steps. That same person, do you know what normally takes for them to walk 20,000 steps?
3 days.
Bro, give me some. Come on, man. 2 weeks. The average person will walk 20,000 steps in 2 weeks. Do you think they'll be a little thirsty? Yeah. Especially with those strategically placed carts all along the park that have these $4 water bottles. Would you pay that much? Yeah, because you're thirsty, right? Absolutely. What about at a movie theater when you're eating some popcorn? You ever notice how salty that popcorn is? You ever wonder why it makes your lips all scrunched up and stuff?
Get the drink.
Exactly. Would you be willing to pay $4 or $5 for a bottle of water at the movie theater because you don't want to miss the movie? Yeah, you would. Because it's like, all right, it's inconvenience. I have to pay more. Whatever. Let's just do it, right? Because you want to finish the movie. You're in it for the experience. Look for the thirsty crowd. What does that thirsty crowd mean? What is that in a econ term?
The need.
The need, demand, the demand. That's what we're talking about. Rental demand. So it's the same thing. It doesn't change within business. Short-term rental investing, we look for the demand. That's the number one thing that I look for. Is there a demand in this market? So that means how often are rentals booked throughout the year by using a combination of annual occupancy and listing growth rates. This metric shows the relative travel demand in each market, yada, yada, yada. But demand, really, like the reality is, do people want to be there, and are they continually want to be there? The next thing we look at is revenue growth, meaning, has it been growing from the past year to this year, or is it kind of stagnant? That's the next thing that I look for. I want to see a trend. I want to see a growth where people are people are willing to spend more each year, because I know that's going to do great for my long-term investments, right? Who would want to do that? Right? I need your participation, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, right? Thank you. All right. So the next thing we look for is investability. What does that even mean? To be honest, I coined this term from AirDNA, and I still just use it because I just accepted it. I still don't know what it really means, but I use it I just still use it anyway. Forget that. So really what it means is, are you willing to pay $1 million to make $50,000, or are you wanting to pay $200,000 to make $50,000? Which one would you rather do? $200,000 to make $50,000, right? Obviously, that's where you want to go. So those are the three key things that I look for that are like the bottom line before I enter into a market. Next thing I look for, and this is more for the sake of the security aspect of it, is I look for the stability. So industry. So what kind of industries are involved in this economy? For example, would you guys know what kind of industries are involved in Coeur d'Alene? Tourism, yep. What else? Hospitality. That's kind of linked up with tourism. What else? Forest. Yeah, forestry. That is an industry. What else? Electronic manufacturing. I didn't even know that, but I'm going to take your word for it. Yes? Healthcare. Yep, that's right. That's right next door as well. Real estate is, yeah, I mean, real estate's kind of everywhere as long as you have people. But yes. So there's tons of industries, right? The more industries you have within a single market, the more stable it is that it's going to be during a recession. So like if you have military, healthcare, biotech, tech, I mean, you got San Francisco, which has the biotech and tech. Like the more industries you have, the more stable it's going to be overall, because the more jobs it's supplying. So that's going to be another indicator that you want to look for when you're entering into a new market. Landlord friendly is a big one, at least for me. Am I going to be buying in a state that, say for example, if someone stays longer than 30 days, they now have tenant rights? Now, if I'm in a landlord-friendly state, I have a little more rights to where I can say, if they stop paying, I can boot them out. But if it's not a landlord-friendly state, a tenant-friendly state, then it's like, okay, I might have to deal with that tenant for a year of them not paying. And that's just not fair. That's just not cool. I mean, life's not fair, but that's just not cool. Next thing I look for is compliance. Is it even allowed? So there's a lot of short-term rental restrictions. Short-term rentals are really new. There's places like Vrolio.com. You can look up and see whether if there's any STR restrictions, how heavy they are. But you can also just Google search it within the city, STR restrictions within that certain city. You have to look at the HOAs as well. These are things you want to look at before you start investing and seeing if you can do a short-term rental. A lot of people are doing permits now. A lot of cities are, I mean. So those are things you just want to be aware of prior to you investing in that area. Because they are so new, there's a lot of new governments that are going in. To be honest, I'm a big fan of old places with short-term rentals like the Keys, because they have vacation rentals for years before this even became popular. So they had, their rules are still the same since the 80s. So you kind of know what you're playing with and what you can and cannot do, which I like. But anyway, with that, also another thing I like to take a look at is population growth. So this is a study that was done from moving companies. So it's when they pick up a truck and they drop it off at another state. I want to know this because I want to know, am I going to have appreciation with the houses that I buy? So the top inbound states, surprise, surprise, Idaho, and this was done back in 2019. We just went in the future, y'all. 2019, but this, yeah, right. So this trend usually goes on for like quite a few years. It's not like a 1 year kind of thing. It's quite a few years. But Arizona, South Carolina, Tennessee, North Carolina, these are the top inbound states as of 2019. It's probably changed a little bit or just increased a lot. Top outbound states are, surprise, surprise, California, Illinois, New Jersey, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. So these are things just to keep track of because, you know, we like to know where people are moving and where people aren't moving, right? Because that's going to drastically affect some of our appreciation values and what we're able to invest in and make that wise decision when buying. Which, all right, great. Yes, Michael, we know that we want to buy low and charge a ridiculous amount for rent, right? To get that $80,000, $60,000 a year and from one single property. But how do we find this information? Well, we find it from having the right tools, software, and data. So data sources that I use for short-term rental are going to be like AirDNA. Who's heard of AirDNA? Awesome, so quite a few of you. Who's heard of MashVisor? Fewer of you, but I still love to see that, so that's great. Yes, who's heard of Air Tactics? That's a smaller one, they don't really count. They're kind of just trying to make themselves known. You don't have to use them. AirDNA and MashVisor as a combination are great. They're the ones that are going to give us all that correct information that what we're looking for. That's going to give us the data of the demand, the revenue, year over year growth. They're going to give us that information of investability. They're going to give us a track record of the last 4 or 5 years that we've seen within growth. And that's what I want to know. I can do all the other research through Zillow and through anything else, but as far as those 3 critical things that I mentioned within secret number 1, that's what I want to know. And I get that from the combination of AirDNA and MashVisor. So this is my friend. There's a picture of me, my wife, my friend Jason, and my friend Amber. They live like 2 houses down from us. We're hanging out in Boise. They're actually from the Spokane area. I don't know if they look familiar to you. Anybody? No? Okay, I didn't think so. But they're kind of like real estate people, not really. They have like two homes that they own that they just do long-term rent. Anyway, Amber came up to me the other day, and she's like, hey, Mike, I know that you're in Airbnb and stuff. Like, there's this home that just came on the market for like $450,000. Great price in our neighborhood. Like, because our home, like, I just got my home refinanced for like $600,000. And so it was like, oh yeah, that's a great price for around the same square footage. Man, it was like 300 square feet less. But anyway, so she's like, hey Mike, I know you do Airbnb, like what is it all involved? Like what do you have to do? How much time does it take? And I'm like, I'm just giving her all this information and then she's like, okay, I think I'm gonna buy it. I'm like, great. I'm like, it's like, how much money do you think I'll make from it? I'm like, okay, about $38,000 a year or so. I'm like, oh. And she's like, oh, great. I'm like, yeah, that's all right. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I mean, I wouldn't buy it. Like, well, why don't you buy it? It's like, well, because I can buy, because I'm buying in places where I can pay half the price and I make double the amount of money. And she's like, huh. And what was so curious to her and what she wanted to know this about is because she wants to spend more time with her family. She has 3 kids. She didn't really want to go back to work. She's a real estate agent. She wants to work less and just invest more time with her family. And so like, well, if you really want to do this, like I would just recommend to buy where I'm buying. And like, in fact, I showed her a couple places in Virginia. I'm like, go buy here. Like you'll do just fine. Like, well, how do I know which one to buy? I'm like, well, here, take my login information, use MashVisor. Like I already did all of the data, research for you. It's a good market. Like you can go find something. I'm like, all right, cool. So I just was just trying to help a buddy out, right? So next day, she comes over to the house and she's like, I bought something. I'm like, wait, what? Really? You took my advice? You're crazy. And so I was like, all right, well, cool. Well, let's take a look at it. Let's go, let's double check the numbers, right? And let's make sure that this was a good buy. And we look at it and it was a good buy. So this is what she did. So she went from looking to buy a house for $450,000 to make $38,000 a year to buying a house at $270,000 is what she made the offer at, and she won. Actually, she got like something was wrong with the roof. She had to replace it, this and that, so she got another like $9,000 in credit, so she actually paid less. But that house has the potential to make $80,000 a year. Well, how do we, and so she's just finished escrow, she just got into it, she's now doing the furnishings of it, but how do we really know that she's able to make $100,000 a year? Through the software that we use. This is the house that she bought. It has a nice little lake and a nice little area. It's in the Shenandoah, or the Virginia area, right outside of Washington, D.C. So really great spot. There's a lot of tourism that goes through here, a lot of good land, a lot of amenities that really show it to be great. If you can see right there where it's circled, it says $6,617 a month is what she's making. Well, how can we trust that? Through Mashvisor as well. We can track and we can see like properties. So we can literally click on each of one of these properties and see what kind of amenities they have. We can see how much revenue they've made. We can see what kind of occupancy they've had. And these are things that we're tracking 5 years back. So it's not like, oh, well, hope. No, this is actually what people are paying to stay in these places. And what's cool is that we can get to these places before a whole bunch of other people know where these places are going to be. Or a whole bunch of, like, for example, like I invest in Florida, and to be honest, like Florida is a very saturated market. You can still make money there. But like everyone knows about Florida. It's not a surprise, right? But like you might be a little surprised, like, oh, why do you invest in Virginia? Well, I invest in certain parts of Virginia that makes sense because the numbers tell me they do. Well, these are the numbers. And what's really cool about this software too is you can look at, for example, this one, Bear Crossing Luxury Mountain or a Getaway. You see all these numbers right here. That's how much they made each month of 2021. But what's unique about this is you can say it looks pretty flat, right? Like it's the same amount each month. But say this one doesn't look flat. Like you'll see 8,000, 8,000, 5,000, 9,000, 9,000, 10,000, 13,000, 13,000, 8,000. What would you say is the difference between these two items right here?
Variable pricing.
Bam. So another software that we like to use is pricing software. Pricing software is the same software as that commercial airlines, hotels that use. We can use variable pricing. So one I use is called Price Labs. It will dictate, depending on the market and the changes of the season, that will make the pricing go higher or lower in order for it to stay occupied. This person probably is not a professional, and to be honest, I love going into markets where I don't see a whole lot of variation because that means there's less professionals there. But if I go into a market and I can get in there, in that market, I can be one of those first to be in there, and I can make a pretty decent amount of money based on my purchase, right? Who would like to know that? I would like to know that. That's awesome. Y'all know what that means for me and my family? Shoot. All right. So anyway, all that's cool. So also, but one of those factors too is in order for me to get to that one city, I need to know how to find that city. So this was my old school way of doing things. This is what I used to do a lot. And you can take a picture of this if you want, because a lot of these cities are still doing very great. But I would collect all the data I can. I would look at all these like upcoming cities, and I would put them all together and get information from AirDNA. So I get the rental demand, average daily rate, occupancy rates, revenue, and then I would have my assistant fill in, hey, look up on Zillow, give me the long-term rents, get me the average cost of the house, average cost of a condo. I get this from AirDNA of how many active rentals, so I get to see how big of a market it is. And this would help me define what markets to enter into. So when I first started, me and my buddy, he was like, dude, let's just invest in Airbnb in Meridian in our neighborhood. And I'm like, bro, when I put this together, Meridian and Boise, they're like down here, somewhere underneath the floor. You know, they're not even close to what's up here. And in fact, you're still paying $450,000, which this one, $425,000 for average cost of house. Well, this gets you at least $4,000 a month. Occupancy rates of 77%, average daily night of 253, and it's also 88 rental demand. That's great. That's in Cherry Log, Georgia. Y'all been there before? I never have. I never even heard of it. But I might now. I mean, it's better than Boise, where I live, in Meridian. Coeur d'Alene's probably somewhere around here. I don't think I have Coeur d'Alene on here, so I'm sorry, guys. But this was my old, this was an old thing I used to use, but now I actually did a partnership with AirDNA, and now they give me quarterly statements, throughout the year. So I get fresh statements so I can actually track and see what the trends are going, and I can get all this data, actually 20 more metrics I can measure it by, which is pretty dang awesome. So that's all great. So we got what? We know how and what to look for in order to find the best vacation rentals. We know what data and things to use in order to get the best vacation rentals. Now, how do we do it without our own money? I don't know about you, but when I first started this, although I was making my grand $3,000 a month, right, from first starting out, I didn't have a whole lot of cash. I had maybe like 20, I don't know, this might be a lot to y'all, but I had like probably $20,000 in the bank, which was a lot to me. Not gonna lie. But with that being said, in order for me to know I needed to expand that and grow as much as I can, I could probably do one property without 20,000, yeah, maybe. But because I decided to think outside the box, like, okay, well, how can I stretch this as far as I can? I was able to get 5 more properties instead. And the way I did that is my first way of doing that, I'm going to do this next slide because, I don't know, I didn't have really a slide for this. I just put money on it. Maybe it was, I don't know, it's somewhat related, maybe. But what I first did was I partnered. I partnered with a friend. So this is the little money down part. So I did my part. I called a buttload of people, and I started making a list of asset-based lenders. Who know what asset-based lenders are? So there's one in this room. Bam! Hard money lenders is a version of an asset-based lender, but there's also asset-based lenders who do something for a long term or a 30-year. You can maybe still kind of call them hard money lenders, but I don't really call them that. They're just like 30-year fixed loans with higher interest rates than your normal conventional loans. But what's fantastic about these ones, and the ones that I use, we do 10% down, and that happened after a lot of calling and networking and being in these types of groups and talking to people. But that allowed us to be like, okay, well, we can buy this house. We know where to buy. We bought this $250,000 house. Well, hey, bud, Corey, you want to split with me? The down payment? Yeah? Great. $250,000, 10% down. That's what, $25,000 plus closing costs? We're looking at maybe like $30,000 total. All right, you take 15, I take 15. Great. So that's what we did on my very first one. It was actually $215,000. But still, you get the picture. So that was my first one. And then we soon realized that, well, there's a cap that you can do that. You can only do that so much because you're still using each other's money. I'm like, okay, well, great. Well, we got a couple properties now. Let's start networking more, start talking to more people. Maybe we can start trying to find gap funding. Does anyone know what gap funding is? Yeah, one person? Great, that's fine. Gap funding, well, I know you know.
No, sorry, I have a quick question.
What?
The 10% loans that you're able to get, does that include furniture? Or do you come up with that out of pocket?
That's a great question. So, does it include furniture? Kind of. I use it as that. So what it's so cool and why I don't like Airbnb arbitrage, I'm not sure if there's any arbitrage fans out there. It's fine if you do. Sorry, Michael. I will still partner with you. But if there's any, that's one thing you can't do, but you can do with asset-based lending. So on our first one, what we did was $215,000. We put $50,000 in rehab. This was in Florida, but we also included the furniture cost, which was roughly about $10,000 into our loan. So we had our rehab loan. We were able to put that into a 30-year loan, and we were able to get into this house with only paying the down payment. So that's what's really cool when you focus your energy, right, on owning assets rather than doing another business of just renting. Don't get me wrong, arbitrage, it works great. It's a good entry point, but there is better. You can still get into owning properties with little money down, but it does take work, it does take your effort, and it does take concentration. The same amount of concentration it would take for you to do arbitrage. Who knows what arbitrage is, by the way? I don't know if I'm speaking to anybody. Okay, yeah, so I'm not a big fan of it. Just because it's the same amount of energy you would use to owning a property, but owning a property, you get to take the advantages of depreciation, of appreciation, and you save a whole heck of a lot more money. It just doesn't make any sense to go rent a property to do another business and do another job. I'd rather own it. Sorry for the tangent. But with that being said, so yes, you can wrap your furniture costs into the loan when you work with asset-based lending. What's also great about it is, unlike traditional loans, they don't really care where your money comes from, or at least the ones that I work with. If you have money, you can partner with someone else, you can pay them a percentage, and that can come up with the down payment. So that's what we just moved into. In fact, I just met with someone yesterday for lunch. She agreed to give us $25,000 for our next project. But that's going to be enough, at least, for the down payment, which is all really what we need. So that's when we're able to get into a position where we get into another property without any of our money. We have a private money lender. We're paying her 9%. We're paying the hard money lender about 8%. To take care of the 90% of the loan. So we were able to get into this property, no money down. We just spent the energy on finding the right property. We already have our team, our contractors are able to do the work. We do the refinance. We don't even see it. In fact, our first property we didn't even see until it was 3/4 of the way done. And then we're like, oh great, this is actually working. So all that to say is really, I'm just saying that because it's possible. I want you to know and to realize it's possible. There's actually quite a few more ways to find private money. For example, meetup groups like this. You guys ever heard of IRAs? Individual retirement account, especially the self-directed individual retirement account. Do you know that they can loan money to other people, right? It's really restricted on what they can loan themselves.
Yeah, you can't do it yourself.
Yeah, you can. Or like the X or the Y axis, you can't do that, right? But you can do the diagonal axis. And then you can do like your friend Joe way over there. It doesn't make any sense. But you can go pitch at IRA. So like one of the ones that are local to us is Mountain West IRA. And you can go to them and be like, hey, this is what we got going on. This is our portfolio. This is what we do. I'm looking for investors. And what we preach is short term because we already have really great partnerships for our bigger investments. So we just need something for the down payment so we can continuously buy and buy and buy. So that's one of the things that is really cool about that is because they're already familiar with real estate. And I wouldn't go to like necessarily, it's easier to go to them than it is to go to your grandma, right? Because grandma doesn't know anything about real estate. I'm saying that from a personal position. My grandma has like 400,000 in stocks and just making like maybe 4%. I'm like, grandma, I can make you so much more. It's a hard spot. I'm gonna talk to her tomorrow. No, but on a serious note, another position you can do is, anyone heard of ListSource? One person, two people? Yeah. So ListSource is a great tool as well. Well, you can do a lot with ListSource, but one of the things you can do with them is you can look up private mortgages. So say you are wanting to invest in a specific area, you can look up private mortgages in that area and who owns those private mortgages, and you can find the people who are giving out these mortgages to these homes. You can get their information by skip tracing them. You can find them as like, hey, Mr. blah, 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 I see that you you own a mortgage over at X, 123 First Street. Would you be interested in lending on another home in the same neighborhood? It's a great strategy. That's another way you can find people who are used to and know real estate. Don't go outside and trying to find somebody who doesn't know real estate because they're not comfortable with it. It doesn't make sense to try and convince them. But you want to find people within who already know real estate, like IRAs, private mortgages, who are already lending on it. You want to find those individuals, you want to talk to them. Real estate meetup groups. There's people here right now who are willing to lend to you if you have a project. Talk to them. I literally heard it as people were introducing themselves. Like, I'm hearing people, yes, they would be willing to lend money. Talk to them. But they're here right in front of you, so you got to take action though, right? Yeah. So, those are the 3 secrets. So we covered where and how to find the vacation rentals, why software tools are the key to your success. Number 3, how to be able to do it with little or no money down. Was this helpful? You guys gonna take some action? Yes. Come on, y'all take some action? Yes. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. Sorry, I got a lot of energy. Anything else? I think we're good? We good? All right, we can clap. Sweet.